Hey Ronnie,
Hi.
are we gonna make something?
We are. We're gonna make Char Siu Bao. We're gonna start with the Char Siu. So today I'm going, well, over the next 3 days, actually, is how long it's gonna take. I'm gonna make Char Siu Bao. We're gonna start with the Char Siu, or barbecued pork. So we have pork butt and honey, white pepper, hoisin sauce, Chinese 5-spice, soy sauce, sesame oil, and about a half a head of garlic. And then it calls for something called maltose, but I don't have it and don't really know what it is, but basically it's sugar, liquid, syrup type stuff. So we are going to experiment with Karo. Hence why we are doing adventures in experimentation. So the recipe calls to melt and boil everything except for the pork together in a small saucepan. So that's what we're going to do first.
What's that?
This is honey. Calls for 3 tablespoons of honey. It's a peanut butter jar spatula that I'm using. That's actually what the label said when I bought it.
They have specifically peanut butter jar spatulas?
At Williams Sonoma they do. Or they did.
Well, aren't you fancy?
I thought it would be good for frosting cakes.
It's probably true.
So, 3 tablespoons of honey. 3 tablespoons of maltose, which is what we are substituting with Karo. And then 3 tablespoons of a jar. I can barely get open. So this is hoisin sauce. It's a plum sauce. Goes really well with soup, pork, beef, chicken. Goes good with everything. Everything is absolutely delicious with hoisin sauce.
Tastes like barbecue.
Tastes like really sweet barbecue. But either way, very delicious. And then 3 tablespoons of soy sauce. Now it says for a teaspoon of white pepper, and a teaspoon of Chinese 5-spice. What is Chinese 5-spice, are you asking? Well, it is the aromatic blend of spices gives a slightly sweet smelling, pungent flavor to red cooked, soy sauce braised, or roasted meats and poultry. Use it as sparingly as seasoning. Ingredients: cinnamon, star anise, fennel, ginger, cloves, white pepper, and licorice. But I think that's actually more than 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's actually Chinese 7-spice. And we want 1 teaspoon of this. 2 teaspoons of sesame oil. Sesame oil is used in everything. Everything. In Chinese, Korean, Japanese cooking. Now, bring it over to my newly cleaned stove. So, medium heat, because it'll start cooking fast. So, go back to garlic. So it says to just slice the garlic thinly. Thing is, I'm not a professional chef. I'm not going. All right. We need to bring this up to a boil and let it kind of cook a little bit until everything is melted together and it's thickened slightly. So remove it from heat and let it cool completely. It says to cut it into 4 pieces or to fit into the pan. So trimming off excess fat, which there's actually not a lot of fat on this particular one. And also try not to cut yourself.
So you're making like really big pork chops.
Kind of, yeah.
Really big, delicious pork chops.
That are going to be marinated in yummy, yummy, delicious Chinese-style barbecue. So I've lined the pan with tinfoil to help keep the pan clean-ish, because this is going to get really sticky and it'll be a pain in the rear end to clean. So this will help with the cleaning process.
Always wash your hands after you deal with raw meat.
Alright, so it's cooled now. The recipe says to pour like 3/4 of it over and reserve the other part, but I'm going to pour it all over because that's what I do, and I'll just make more if I need more. You want to make sure that it's covered in it as much as possible. Then we're going to put a piece of saran wrap over it and put it in the fridge and leave it overnight. Voila! In the fridge for, it says minimum 4 hours, but overnight is best. So it's been overnight with marinating of the pork. We're going to pull it out of the fridge. The recipe doesn't say to rotate it, but it's probably a good thing to rotate it because, as you can see in here, the marinade does not necessarily cover it. So rotate it a couple times just for good measure. Next, we're going to pick it up with my not so good tongs, shake off excess sauce, and place it on top of a rack that's over a foil-lined pan. And then voila. Now we are going to place it in an oven that has been preheated to 350. And it's going to cook or bake or roast, whatever you want to call it, for approximately 45 minutes or until the internal temperature has reached 160 degrees. Gotta have sharp knives. So we took it out and we've let it cool for about 30 minutes or so that we can handle it without burning ourselves. It baked in my oven for about 40 minutes or so until the internal temperature reached 160 degrees. My oven cooks things a little bit faster than my old oven at my last place, so your oven might vary. I started off by putting it in for 30 minutes and then checked it and then added time if I needed to. So that's what you'll do. Now, we are going to chop it up into little bits, put it in a bowl, and refrigerate it yet again. So you're going to want the pieces to be of a nice small, so that's probably the largest we'll want it. So we're going to cut it down smaller because remember these are going into a bun and we want them to be able to be bite-sized. So we made another batch of the marinade, but this time instead of putting slices of garlic in it, we just did a little bit of garlic powder and we added extra honey because the Char Siu Bao that myself and my fiance are used to are sweeter when you actually bite into it. So add honey to your taste level. It's basically what we did. I took my honey bear and I squeezed a ton in. It looks like it might have been maybe 2 extra tablespoons or more. We have chopped pork, all chopped up and pretty. And now we're going to put this over it. Pour it over. We've let that cool a little bit. And now we're going to mix it all together. Is we don't want it to be too sloppy because then it'll get the bread itself wet. Because when we make the bao part, which is the bread, we don't want it to soak into the bread. Alright. That looks nice and covered. So it's fully covered and everything. Now we're going to put some saran wrap over it just so that it doesn't dry out. And pop it back in the fridge overnight once again to fully cool and be ready to go for the bread part. So it's been 24 hours since we added extra yumminess to the pork buns, or the pork, which is the char siu. Now we're going to make the bread part, the bao. So this is going to get sticky, so you want to take off all your jewelry, make sure your hair is out of your way. So we de-bling. What we did is we took 3/4 of a cup of water and mixed it with 1.5 teaspoons of yeast. And we let it sit for about a minute or so. That way the yeast dissolves and starts activating. Because I have active dry yeast. Woohoo! Now we're going to combine the flour, the sugar, and the baking powder. Which means we need 2 tablespoons of sugar. And 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Open. So this is actually a very similar recipe as the haddock that I made a few months ago. And what I've noticed last time is your hands get sticky like instantaneously. So 3 cups of flour. It says scant cups. So it means like just barely 3. So we're going to put 2.5 in to start with, because adding flour is not a problem. It's taking flour away and that's a big problem. Now we want to mix that together. So that it's nice and mixed. Now is when we're going to add that 3/4 cup water and 1.5 teaspoon of baking or dry yeast. And we also need 2 tablespoons of oil. And now this is where it gets sticky. You want to work it so that you get all the flour in. If it's too dry, you can add a little bit of water, like a teaspoon to a tablespoon at a time, but not any more than that at a time because it will get soupy real fast. Extreme a little bit of water. So we now have made it into a ball. At this point, we're going to cover it and put it in the oven with just a light on where it's not getting any drafts or anything and it's nice and toasty warm in there so that it can rise. So we've switched over to Vicky. She's gonna finish kneading the bread dough so that it's all uniform in look. So here we go.
Yeah.
So your grandmother always rolled it out onto a cutting board and kneaded it flat. Since the tile is on the counter, can't really do that. So just use a large flat bowl. But do it exactly the same way as your grandmother did it. Just push it with your palm, flip it, push it with your palm. And you really want a uniform consistency. You basically want to knead it until it's smooth. Which we may not get there with this recipe, but we'll get darn close because this is looking really good. Especially after we proof it, it'll definitely be uniform.
So Vicky, what is proof?
Proofing is letting the dough rise until it's doubled in size. Basically, you're adding air, makes the dough light and fluffy. I switched over to a paper plate since I don't have. I'm sure we do have a cutting board, but making a cutting board dirty at this point is kind of useless. So just a little bit easier to do it on a flat surface. Here and see how smooth it's getting. Make a nice solid dough ball and then kind of push it out.
Voila. And we have dough. Woohoo!
The other thing that you want to do before you let it proof is because it's going to get double in size.
And it's gonna get extra sticky.
Yeah. Smack it dab in the middle.
So, bowl inside turned off but warmed up oven.
Bye bye dough baby.
We'll see you in about 2 hours. So it's been about an hour and a half to 2 hours or so since we put the dough in the oven to rise. Dun, da, da, da. Beautiful. Smells like yeast. You do not want to punch it down like a lot of recipes will call for regular bread. We don't want to punch it down. So we want to cut it into 10 equal pieces. So oil up your knife so that it doesn't stick to the dough. Just cut it.
Start with the small one because that's about how big you're gonna do it.
So, seeing as that was 2 pieces, we do kind of want to smash it together a little bit. So you're gonna pull it out into like a circle-esque shape with the middle of it being thinner than the outside edges. A little bit in the middle, like that. And then this is the experimental part of this whole thing. How they manage to make them look so beautiful, I don't know. But essentially you're going to, this is an itty bitty one, but you're going to do something to that nature. We're going to put it on a piece of parchment paper that we've cut into squares and put it down. The paper is so that it doesn't stick to the steamer. There's also a baked version, but I'm not a huge baked bao fan. I like mine steamed, but that's up to you.
So I watched a whole bunch of tutorials on how to do this, but the people who do it are generally Chinese or have done this so many times they can do it in their sleep. So what you're supposed to do is pinch and turn. Pinch and turn. So make sure you don't make it too thin on the bottom. It's something that they don't tell you.
Around the sides. Mine just blew up.
Just work it around until it's all covered.
That one blew up.
These aren't going to be attractive. What are you finding out?
Stuff and twist, stuff, twist, stuff, twist, stuff, twist, stuff.
See, it's the last little bit that gets me. Because I'm just like, fold. Done.
Stuff and twist.
As long as it's completely closed, I don't care. They will all taste the same.
We need one more parchment paper.
No.
Oh, there's one.
Yes! Everything is perfect! Although this is really juicy.
These were the first couple of the second batch. As you can tell, they've gotten better as it's expanded out.
Nice.
How many have we made?
There's 12 here.
34. Oh, there's 12 there? I thought there were 10 there.
No, 12. Because remember it made 12.
36. 36.
Holy cow.
Go for it. Brian, tell them what you're doing.
Alright. So now we're using bamboo steamers. And holy cow, some of these are huge. So, with the little wax paper, we're going to put them down.
Parchment paper.
Parchment paper. Close enough.
Confuse people. Not close enough.
And we're going to stick them in here. So our bamboo steamers fit maybe 3 medium-sized ones, and this one could do the big ones. So, like that. So our bamboo steamers, again, don't fit each other very well. So this is how we do it. We put the big one on the bottom, small one on top.
I think it's supposed to be the other way.
It's fine. Because now it fits over there. And now we leave it for 15 minutes. Do not open.
Do it more. More. Open it, open it, open it, open it, open it. Da-na-na-na-na. Inception. Bun inception. Bunception.
Are we ready?
Wait. Alright.
So it has been 15 minutes. And we are now taking our first batch of pork buns
Double bunception. There were more buns under the buns.
out. So, turn it off. Because we'll have to add more water. Because it's going down quite quickly.
Yes. A tasty pork bun. Tom, do you want a pork bun?
Alright.
I'm gonna load them up. Load them up.
Batch number 1.
Haha, guinea pigs.
We are now feeding our first batch to our guinea pigs.
That way we don't die.
Anyone?
Anyone you'd like.
Dominic?
So, first batch turned out relatively well. This is the first time I've made bao before. The pork is a little on the spicy side from the Chinese 5-spice. So next time I make it, we'll probably reduce that one and add a little more honey to it. But other than that, I love you, bao.